Commander Stone stood at the viewport of the Imperial scout ship, Starseeker, his four eyes fixed on the blue-green planet floating in the darkness of space. His upper set of eyes tracked the movement of primitive satellites, while his lower set studied the planet's surface. After 10,000 years of expanding the Galactic Empire's reach, he thought he had seen everything. This planet, however, made him uneasy. "Commander, you need to see this," called out Officer Reed from her monitoring station. Her tentacles moved quickly across the control panel, bringing up a series of energy readings on the main screen. "We're detecting unusual radiation patterns across the planet's surface." Stone turned away from the viewport, his scaled skin reflecting the soft blue light of the bridge. "Explain." "The species calls themselves humans, and their planet Earth," Reed began, pulling up more data. "They're still using combustion engines and have only reached their own moon, but—" She paused, double-checking her readings. "They've already split the atom, multiple times, and they're using it for both power and weapons." Stone clicked his teeth together, a gesture of dismissal. "Many species discover atomic power before reaching the stars. It's hardly noteworthy." "That's just it, sir," Reed insisted. "Most species take thousands of years to progress from first flight to atomic power. These humans, they did it in less than 50 years. The bridge fell silent. Even the background hum of the ship's engines seemed to grow quieter. "Impossible," Stone muttered, but moved closer to examine the readings himself. "What else?" "Their information networks are primitive but extensive. They're constantly at war with each other, yet they're advancing technologically at an unprecedented rate. Look at this development curve." Reed projected a hologram showing human technological progress. The line shot upward at an almost vertical angle over the last century. Stone felt his scales tighten, an involuntary response to stress. "Run a comparison with other species we've encountered." The computer displayed multiple lines representing different civilizations' technological progress. Most showed a gentle, gradual slope upward over thousands of years. The human line was nearly vertical in comparison. "Their wars," Stone said slowly. "Tell me about their wars." Reed's tentacles flew over the controls again. "They've had two planet-wide conflicts they call world wars. In the second one, they went from primitive propeller aircraft to jet engines in 6 years. They developed atomic weapons in less than a decade. And instead of destroying themselves, they used the same technology to create medical treatments and new energy sources." Stone walked back to the viewport, studying the planet with new interest. "What's their current military capability?" "Difficult to assess, sir. They maintain multiple competing military forces, but they're capable of rapid unity when faced with external threats. They have approximately 13,000 nuclear weapons spread across their planet, primitive space stations, and—" Reed paused again, her skin changing color slightly. "Sir, they're already developing directed energy weapons and experimenting with antimatter containment. A species that hasn't even reached their neighboring planets is working with antimatter." Stone's scales now stood fully erect, a sign of serious concern. "How is that possible?" "Unknown, sir, but there's more. They're entertainment media. They've been imagining space warfare for over a century. They have thousands of theoretical battle scenarios already worked out. Some of them are disturbingly close to actual Imperial tactical doctrines." Commander Stone made a decision. "Send a message to High Command. Mark it Priority 1. "Yes, sir. What's the message?" Stone took one last look at the seemingly peaceful planet below. Message begins: "Have discovered pre-FTL species with anomalous development pattern. Requesting immediate intervention protocols. Species shows signs of becoming a Class A civilization within 1 generation. Most concerning, they appear to be developing advanced military technology alongside civilian applications, rather than sequentially like all known species. Recommend immediate containment or elimination before they achieve FTL capability." "Message sent, sir," Reed confirmed. "High Command acknowledges. They're ordering us to begin standard intimidation protocols." Stone felt his scales flatten in resignation. The Empire had used the same approach for thousands of years: show overwhelming force, demand submission, and incorporate the new species into the Empire. It had worked countless times before. But as he looked down at the blue-green world, watching the lights of cities spread across its dark side, Commander Stone couldn't shake the feeling that this time would be different. This time, they might be poking something that would poke back. Hard. Very well, he said finally. Begin preparations for first contact protocols. Let's show these humans what real power looks like. He had no way of knowing that this order would mark the beginning of the Empire's greatest mistake, one that would change the galaxy forever. The Imperial diplomatic vessel Peacebearer dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon, its massive hull gleaming in the sunlight. Behind it, 3 warships emerged like dark shadows against the stars. Commander Stone watched from the bridge of his ship as the humans' primitive detection systems lit up with activity. "They've spotted us," Officer Reed reported, her tentacles dancing across the control panel. "Their global communications are going crazy. Military bases worldwide are going on high alert." "Good," Stone said, his scales shifting to a confident purple hue. "Let them panic. Send the message." The Peacebearer broadcast its message across all frequencies in perfect English. "People of Earth, we represent the Galactic Empire, rulers of 1,000 worlds. Your planet has been chosen for integration into our empire. Resist and face destruction. Submit and enjoy the benefits of imperial rule." The bridge crew waited for the expected response. Fear, chaos, immediate surrender. It's what always happened. Instead, their communications officer spoke up, confusion in his voice. "Sir, we're receiving a response from multiple sources simultaneously." "Put it through," Stone ordered. Different voices came through, all carrying the same unexpected tone of calm determination. "This is the United States Space Command. You are entering restricted aerospace. Withdraw immediately. Chinese Space Forces tracking multiple hostile vessels. You have entered sovereign territory. Retreat or face consequences. European Union Space Agency declaring emergency protocols. Unknown vessels, you have 10 minutes to withdraw." Stone clicked his teeth in amusement. "They think they can challenge us. Very well. Launch the demonstration." One of the warships moved forward, its main cannon charging. The target was a small military base in an isolated desert area, chosen to minimize casualties while maximizing impact. The beam of energy lanced down from orbit, bright enough to be seen from space. But something unexpected happened. As the beam approached Earth, it hit an invisible barrier and scattered. Alarms blared across the Imperial fleet. "Impossible," Stone shouted. "They have shield technology." "Reed, explain." Before Reed could answer, new contacts appeared on their screens, hundreds of them, rising from hidden bases on Earth's surface and launching from underwater facilities. They were crude by Imperial standards, but they moved with surprising speed and purpose. "Sir," the tactical officer shouted, "the humans are using some kind of magnetic acceleration weapons. They're firing." "Sir, incoming." The space around the Imperial ships erupted with explosions as railgun rounds moving at relativistic speeds tore through space. The Imperial shields, designed to stop energy weapons, struggled against the primitive but hypervelocity projectiles. "Return fire," Stone ordered, but more surprises awaited them. The human vessels were using the debris from their own attacks as cover, demonstrating impossible maneuverability for their tech level. Worse, they were coordinating globally, using their planet's magnetic field to mask their movements. The Peacebearer shuddered as multiple impacts struck its hull. "Report." "Sir, they're using our own sensors against us," Reed explained, her skin pale with shock. "They're timing their attacks between our shield oscillations. The technology is primitive, but the tactics." Another explosion rocked the ship. Multiple hull breaches. Someone shouted. "They've adapted their nuclear weapons for space combat." Stone watched in horror as one of his warships disappeared in a blinding flash, not from a direct hit, but from dozens of smaller impacts that had systematically targeted its weak points. These humans weren't just fighting back. They were fighting smart. All ships, emergency retreat. Stone ordered, "Get us out of here." As the Imperial ships flowed into FTL, they intercepted transmissions from Earth's surface. Not panicked citizens or desperate leaders, but military commanders calmly coordinating their forces and analyzing Imperial weaknesses. "Sir," Reed said quietly, "I don't think those were their planetary defenses. I think that was just their first line of response. They were testing us." Stone stared at the tactical display, watching recordings of the brief but devastating battle. The humans had taken technology centuries behind the empires and used it in ways no one had ever considered. They hadn't just survived first contact. They had turned it into a learning experience. "Send an emergency signal to High Command," Stone ordered, his scales now a pale shade of fear. Tell them we've made a terrible mistake." The humans were ready for us. They'd been preparing for this moment for generations through something they call science fiction. And now, he paused, watching another replay of his warship's destruction. Now they know we're real, and they know we're vulnerable. In the space behind them, Earth's forces were already analyzing the debris, preparing for what they knew would come next. The Empire had wanted to make a statement with their first contact. They had succeeded, but not the one they intended. High Admiral Black of the Imperial Punishment Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship Imperial Might, watching as 500 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. His gray scales gleamed with anticipation. The humans had humiliated Commander Stone's small fleet, but now they would learn the true power of the Empire. "Battle Formation Delta," he commanded. "Launch scout drones. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." The drones shot forward, their sensors prodding the space between Jupiter and Earth. Minutes passed in tense silence. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "the drones are detecting something strange in the asteroid belt." "Show me." The main screen lit up with sensor data. The asteroids were moving, not in their natural orbits, but in careful, controlled patterns. Before anyone could react, hundreds of the asteroids revealed themselves to be disguised human space stations and weapon platforms. "Clever insects," Black muttered, "but not clever enough." All ships, open fire. The Imperial fleet launched a massive barrage of energy weapons, enough firepower to crack a planet. But the humans had learned from their first encounter. The asteroid bases absorbed the energy attacks using some kind of crystalline structure, and then, impossibly, reflected it back. "Impossible," Black shouted as 3 of his ships exploded. They'd had only weeks since first contact. How did they develop this technology so quickly? "Sir," his science officer interrupted, "they didn't develop it. They're using modified solar panel technology they already had. They've just scaled it up, and they're using our own attack energy to power their weapons." More explosions lit up space as human ships emerged from hidden docks within the larger asteroids. They were ugly, practical vessels that looked like they had been built in a hurry, because they had been. But they moved with deadly purpose, using the asteroid field like a massive 3-dimensional battlefield. "They're hurting us," Black realized too late. "All ships, break formation." But the humans had planned for this. As the Imperial fleet scattered, they discovered that the humans had seeded the escape routes with miniature artificial gravitational singularities, crude but effective space mines that played havoc with Imperial navigation systems. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy readings from Mars," an officer reported. "They've built something on the surface." A massive beam of focused solar energy erupted from the red planet's surface, powered by millions of solar collectors. It wasn't particularly accurate, but it didn't need to be. The beam swept through space like a giant lighthouse, forcing the Imperial ships to either shut down their shields to conserve power or be overloaded by the raw energy. That's when the human kinetic weapons struck. Railgun rounds fired from Earth, Luna, and dozens of hastily constructed space platforms tore through the defenseless Imperial ships. The humans had calculated everything. The energy beam would force the Imperial ships to either keep their shields up and overload, or lower them and face the kinetic barrage. How? Black demanded as his fleet crumbled around him. How are they coordinating all this? Sir, his intelligence officer spoke up, we've intercepted their communications. They're using something called video game servers to coordinate their forces. Millions of their civilians are helping calculate firing solutions and predict our movements through some kind of simulation interface. Black watched in horror as another wave of human ships emerged from the dark side of Earth's moon. These ones looked different. They had Imperial technology grafted onto their hulls. They're not just learning, he realized. They're adapting. Every ship we lose, every piece of technology they salvage, they're incorporating it all. Not over years or decades, but in weeks, days even. The Imperial might shuddered as multiple impacts struck its hull. Black looked at his tactical display one last time, watching as his mighty punishment fleet was being systematically torn apart by what should have been an inferior species. Send a message to High Command, he ordered, his scales now a pale white of fear. The humans, they don't think like us. They don't fight like us. Every defeat teaches them. Every victory makes them stronger. We didn't find a primitive species to conquer. We woke up something that's been preparing for this moment through countless stories, games, and simulations. And now, he paused as another explosion rocked his ship. Now they're making those fantasies real. As the Imperial might prepared for emergency retreat, Black realized a terrible truth. The Empire hadn't launched a punishment expedition. They had given humanity the one thing they needed: a reason to unite and an enemy to fight. And humanity, it seemed, had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Captain Walker stood in the command center of Earth's first faster-than-light ship, the Revenge. The vessel was ugly by Imperial standards, a combination of salvaged alien technology and human engineering that looked like it had been built in a garage. Because it had been. All stations report ready, his XO, Lieutenant Nils, announced. Around them, the bridge crew worked at stations that mixed holographic Imperial displays with old-fashioned human touchscreens and keyboards. Time to show them what happens when you pick a fight with Earth, Walker said. Begin Operation Trojan Horse. The Revenge's engines flared to life. A hybrid of Imperial FTL technology and human nuclear drives that Imperial sensors would struggle to identify. Behind it, 30 more ships of similar design moved into formation. They weren't pretty, but they were deadly. Detection systems are picking up an Imperial trade route ahead, Mills reported. 5 cargo ships with 1 military escort, just as our intel suggested. Walker nodded. The Empire had assumed the humans would need years to reverse engineer their technology. They hadn't counted on humanity's greatest weapon. Countless engineers, scientists, and researchers who had spent their lives dreaming about this exact scenario. Launch the drones, Walker ordered. Dozens of small objects shot out from the human fleet. To Imperial scanners, they would look like space debris, another thing the Empire had underestimated. Humans had been dealing with space junk since their first satellites. Now they were weaponizing that experience. The Imperial ships never saw the attack coming. The debris suddenly came to life, attaching to their hulls and injecting computer viruses derived from decades of human cybersecurity warfare. Imperial systems, designed to be elegant and efficient, had no defense against the brutal, primitive force of human hacking. Their shields are down, Mills reported with a grim smile. Moving to Phase 2. The human fleet split into 3 groups, executing a maneuver that would have seemed insane to Imperial tacticians. The ships deliberately exposed their weakest points, but in doing so, they presented the smallest possible target profile. It was a technique developed by human submarine warfare, adapted for space. All ships, open fire, Walker commanded. The hybrid vessels launched their attack, a combination of Imperial energy weapons and human kinetic projectiles. The Imperial ships, their elegant systems confused by human computer attacks, couldn't coordinate their defense. Their escort vessel managed to destroy 2 human ships, but it couldn't protect the cargo vessels. "Downloads complete," the tech officer reported. "We've got their navigation data, shipping routes, and fleet positions." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Send the package." A final wave of drones attached themselves to the Imperial ships. But instead of attacking, these ones began broadcasting on all frequencies, a message that would be impossible to stop without completely shutting down their communications. "What are we sending them?" Mills asked. "Everything," Walker replied. "Every alien invasion movie humans have ever made. Every space battle we've ever imagined. Every strategy game about interstellar war. Let them see what we've been thinking about, planning for, dreaming of, for the last 100 years." The Imperial ships retreated in disarray, their systems clogged with centuries of human science fiction and military theory. But they weren't the real target. The message would spread through their communications network like a virus, showing the entire empire what they were really dealing with. "Sir," Mills said, checking the captured data, "these shipping routes, they lead straight to Imperial core worlds." Walker nodded, looking at the star map that now displayed the Empire's supply lines. Humanity had been pushed back twice, but each time they had learned, adapted, and grown stronger. Now it was their turn to push forward. "Send word to Earth Command," he ordered. "Operation Trojan Horse is a success. We have their routes, their codes, and their attention. Phase 2 can begin." As the human fleet regrouped for their next strike, Walker thought about how the Empire had dismissed humanity as primitive. They hadn't understood that humanity's primitive nature was their greatest strength. Humans had spent their entire history fighting, adapting, and surviving. Now they were taking that experience to the stars. The Empire had wanted to make humanity submit. Instead, they had given them a reason to show the galaxy why Earth's nations had always feared each other, and why they should be absolutely terrified of humanity united. The Imperial High Command gathered in their grand meeting chamber on the capital world. 12 of the Empire's highest-ranking commanders sat around a floating holographic display showing their mounting losses. Their scales displayed various colors of distress. Grand Marshal White, the Empire's supreme military commander, studied the latest reports with all 4 of his eyes. "How is this possible? They're using cargo ships as weapons now." "Yes, sir," General Green reported, his scales a sickly shade of yellow. "The humans took our own merchant vessels and turned them into what they call Q ships, a concept from their own naval history. They hide heavy weapons behind false hulls. Our patrols never suspect them until it's too late." "And these mining ships?" another commander asked. "They filled them with something they call antimatter catalysts," Green explained. "When our ships try to capture them, the ships explode with the force of a small sun. We've lost 3 battle groups to this tactic." White slammed his fist on the table. "They're not fighting according to any known doctrine. Every time we adapt to one of their strategies, they change tactics completely." The hologram shifted to show another battle recording. Imperial ships faced off against human vessels that seemed to be deliberately breaking apart. The commanders watched in horror as the fragments revealed themselves to be smaller attack craft, swarming their capital ships like angry insects. "Their engineering makes no sense," the chief of research said. "They're combining technologies that should never work together. Imperial gravity drives powered by nuclear reactors. Primitive projectile weapons enhanced with our shield technology. They're not advancing along any reasonable technological path. They're just grabbing whatever works and forcing it to function together." "Show them the worst part," White ordered. The hologram changed to display a series of human entertainment broadcasts that had been intercepted. Movies, television shows, and games spanning 100 years, all showing humans fighting alien invaders. The commanders watched in stunned silence. They'd been preparing for this, White said quietly. Not with real weapons or technology, but in their minds, in their stories. They've been imagining this war for generations, playing out countless scenarios, thinking of every possible way to fight an alien invasion. And now, he paused, his scales turning pale. Now they're making those scenarios real. Sir, Green added, we've also discovered why they adapt so quickly. They have something called social media. Billions of their people are connected, sharing ideas, suggesting strategies. Every battle we fight is analyzed by their entire species within hours. They're crowdsourcing warfare. The hologram shifted again, showing human ships using Imperial technology in ways its creators had never imagined. Faster-than-light drives were being used to create weapons that bent space itself. Shield technology was being modified to create impenetrable bubbles inside Imperial ships. Every piece of Imperial tech captured was being turned against them in increasingly creative ways. There's more, Green continued. We've analyzed their historical records. Do you know what humans did when they first developed nuclear weapons? They didn't use them to force world peace. They didn't evolve past warfare. Instead, they developed something called mutually assured destruction and kept preparing for war while maintaining peace. They're the only known species that advance technologically while maintaining their primitive combat instincts. White stood up slowly, his scales now showing the deep blue of profound realization. We made a terrible mistake. We judged them by the standards of all other species we've encountered. Races that developed technology gradually, that evolved past their violent instincts before reaching the stars. But humans. He walked to the hologram, watching recordings of human ships fighting with impossible tactics. Humans never stopped being warriors. They never lost their survival instincts. They just added technology to them. Every other species in the galaxy developed technology to rise above their primitive nature. Humans developed technology to enhance their primitive nature. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire had spent 10,000 years spreading across the galaxy, encountering species that followed predictable patterns of development. But now they had found something new, a species that combined the raw survival instincts of a primitive race with the technological capability of an advanced civilization. Send word to all commands, White ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. The humans cannot be conquered, not because they are stronger, but because they are fundamentally different. They don't think like us. They don't fight like us. And they never, ever give up. For the first time in the Empire's 10,000-year history, their mighty fleets were running away. Not making tactical withdrawals or strategic retreats, but genuinely fleeing in terror. Admiral Thompson of the Human Alliance Fleet watched from the bridge of the Terra's Vengeance as another Imperial battle group disappeared into faster-than-light travel. They're abandoning the entire sector, his tactical officer reported. Reports coming in from all fronts. The Empire is pulling back to their core worlds. Thompson nodded, studying the massive holographic display that showed human forces advancing across what had once been Imperial space. The display itself was a symbol of humanity's progress. Imperial technology modified with human programming to show clear, practical information instead of the elegant but inefficient Imperial design. Sir, his communications officer called out, you need to see this. We've intercepted their retreat orders. The message appeared on the main screen, and Thompson couldn't help but smile. The mighty Empire, which had conquered 1,000 worlds, had issued a general retreat order with just 5 words. Humans do not fight like us. How many ships did we lose taking this sector? Thompson asked. That's just it, sir, his XO replied, checking the data. We lost more ships to equipment malfunctions than enemy fire. They're so scared of our unpredictable tactics that they're retreating before we even fully engage. Thompson understood why. The Empire had spent millennia perfecting their military doctrine, developing elegant solutions to space warfare. Then humans came along and threw the entire rulebook out the airlock. "Show me the Phantom Fleet's latest operation," he ordered. The display shifted to show a group of human ships that appeared to be heavily damaged, drifting through an Imperial supply line. The Empire's ships had approached to capture them, not realizing that the damage was cosmetic. The drifting ships had suddenly come to life, revealing themselves to be perfectly functional warships with devastating close-range weapons. "Classic Trojan horse," Thompson mused. "Works every time." Another report flashed across his screen. The Ghost Squadron had successfully used modified civilian broadcasting equipment to project false sensor readings, making their small group of fighters appear to be a full battle fleet. An Imperial force 10 times their size had retreated without firing a shot. "Sir," his science officer interrupted, "Engineering wants you to know the new hybrid drives are ready. They've combined Imperial FTL technology with human inertial dampeners in a way that, well, they say it breaks 16 different laws of physics, but it works." Thompson nodded. That was humanity's real advantage. They didn't care about elegant solutions or proper technological progression. If it worked, they used it. If it broke the rules, they broke the rules. "Launch the next phase," he ordered. Operation Scattered Thunder. Across the sector, human ships began executing what the Empire would consider suicide maneuvers. They charged into asteroid fields at full speed, using the space rocks as cover. They shut down their engines and went dark, letting momentum carry them silently past Imperial sensor posts. Some ships even intentionally triggered their reactor overloads, not to self-destruct, but to use the energy burst for an extra boost of speed. "Message from Fleet Command," his communications officer announced. "The Empire is abandoning their outer colonies faster than we can advance to claim them. They're falling back to fortified positions around their core worlds." Thompson studied the tactical display again. The Empire's retreat was creating a power vacuum, and nature abhorred a vacuum. Already, he could see the signs of what would come next. Human colonies spreading into abandoned Imperial space, salvage teams recovering abandoned technology, research ships studying the ruins of Imperial installations. "Send word to all commands," Thompson ordered. "The Empire thought they could treat us like every other species they conquered. They thought we would follow their rules of warfare, their patterns of technological development. Instead, we showed them something they've never seen before, a species that combines the raw determination of primitives with the intelligence to make advanced technology work in ways it was never meant to." He watched as another Imperial battle group fled from a numerically inferior human force. "They're not just retreating from our weapons," he realized. "They're retreating from what we represent, chaos in their ordered universe, a species that breaks all their rules and yet somehow keeps winning." The Empire had wanted to add Earth to their collection of conquered worlds. Instead, they had unleashed something they had never encountered before, a species that had spent its entire history preparing for this moment, even if they hadn't known it. The Imperial Palace on the capital world was in chaos. Grand Marshal White stood before the Emperor himself, his scales completely pale with fear as he delivered the final report. "Your Imperial Majesty," White said, his voice trembling, "the humans have broken through our last defensive line. They're approaching the core worlds." The Emperor, a being of impressive size with scales that usually shimmered with all colors of authority, had faded to a dull gray. Around them, the Grand Hall's holographic displays showed the unthinkable, the Empire's mighty fleets in full retreat across every sector. "How?" the Emperor demanded. "How has this primitive species done this to us?" White activated a hologram showing the latest human attacks. "They're using our own technology against us in ways we never imagined. They've taken our elegant weapons and turned them into brutal tools of war. But worse than that." He paused, searching for the right words. "They're enjoying it." The hologram showed human ships performing impossible maneuvers, Imperial technology merged with Earth machines in ways that defied proper engineering. One recording showed a human vessel intentionally overloading its reactor not to self-destruct, but to use the explosion as a weapon while the crew survived in armored pods. Our latest intelligence is disturbing, White continued. They have something called video games, simulations of warfare that their entire species plays for entertainment. They've been practicing space warfare in their minds for generations. Every tactic we use, they've already imagined a counter for it in their games and stories. A new alert flashed across the displays. The humans had taken another sector, but this time they'd done something different. They'd released all the Empire's classified military data onto something they called the Internet, allowing billions of humans to analyze and find weaknesses in Imperial tactics simultaneously. They're not just fighting us with ships and weapons, White explained. They're fighting us with ideas. Every human, from their military leaders to their civilian children, is thinking about ways to beat us. They call it crowdsourcing the war effort. The Emperor watched as another Imperial fleet was forced to retreat from what should have been an easy victory. The humans had somehow turned an entire asteroid field into a massive trap, using Imperial gravity technology to turn space rocks into projectiles. We thought they would be easy to conquer because they were still fighting among themselves, White said. We didn't realize that their constant conflicts had turned their entire species into warriors. They'd spent their whole history fighting, adapting, and surviving. We didn't give them peace. We gave them a common enemy. What are they demanding? The Emperor asked quietly. That's the strangest part, White replied. They're not demanding our surrender. They're not even trying to conquer us. They've sent only one message, broadcast on all frequencies in every language of the Empire. He activated the human transmission. A simple text message appeared. To all species of the Empire, we could have stayed on Earth. We could have lived in peace. But you came to our home and tried to make us kneel. Now we're coming to show you why Earth's nations feared each other so much, and why you should be terrified of us united. You have two choices. Accept us as equals or run. We suggest you run. The Emperor's scales shifted to the deep blue of decision. Send the warning, he ordered, to all Imperial forces and allied species. Full retreat from any sector where humans are detected. Do not engage. Do not attempt diplomacy. Run. White nodded and transmitted what would become the most famous message in Imperial history. Emergency warning to all Imperial forces and allied species. Avoid Earth space at all costs. Humans are not merely warriors. They are war itself evolved in dissentient form. They do not fight like we do. They do not think like we do. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every victory makes them bolder. Their technology follows no logic. Their tactics follow no rules. They turned our own weapons against us in ways we never imagined possible. They do not seek to defeat us. They seek to survive us. And they will survive. Run. Run while you still can. As the message spread across the galaxy, humanity began to establish itself not through conquest, but through reputation. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had proven themselves to be something the Empire had never encountered before. A race that combined the raw survival instincts of their ancestors with the creative potential of advanced civilization. The Empire had wanted to make humanity submit. Instead, they had given humanity the stars.